Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French and English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamzalai.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 5th episode of Season 14, a special guest and Master Certified Coach, Angie Wisdom. And just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Angie, the floor is yours.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Dan. Yes, I am a master certified coach. I work with clients and businesses on elevating their life, elevating their business, really tapping into their full potential so that they are living their best life and most meaningful success in their business.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I'm sure that our listeners also appreciate it. Now, what brought you to become a master certified coach, and what are the typical clients that you have? Are they those who are dealing with not knowing where to take their business to a certain level, how to cross certain milestone? And when it comes to individual, what is really the focus that you put in to be able to help them?
I started out in the financial industry and always had a passion for helping people, help them more obviously on the investment side, and then realized I really liked helping people in an area that was more controllable, not tied to the stock market. And so I started helping people build their business, and I really found a passion for it. And truthfully, I used to be more of a performance coach where really, I taught people how to give it their all at all costs, no matter what it did to them mentally or physically, just to win. And through my own personal journey, I realized that was a really unhealthy way to go about it. Even though there were a lot of victories and wins, we needed more of a balance, and that we could actually have more success if we did things in a better way. And so I really transferred over to that life coaching space so that I could provide people with a more holistic, healthy way to get those wins and victories.
So when it comes to certain personalities, when they're so obsessed to be able to find or to accomplish their goals, how do you allow them to be able to do this work-life balance?
Yes. And that's a great question, because most of my clients are very high achievers. They are always like looking for that next finish line and the next accomplishment. And really, because we have science to show this, and because I have real life data with clients, it's an easy transition for them to make when they realize that once we add some balance, once we fill ourselves up, they actually have a higher output potential. And that's music to their ears, because they're saying, oh, wait, I can become more successful if I give myself a little balance. So it becomes an easy sale for them.
Wow. So what is the secret then to be able to establish this balance? Because obviously it's easier said than done, especially those who are high achievers. They're going to have to completely change their mindset to be able to establish that balance into their lives. And it's not as easy as we can just say it like quickly over a podcast. So what are the transitional portion of your plan that will help them create this balance?
It really isn't a flip of the switch. Like you said, it's rewiring their mind to think differently. The first thing that we need to do is kind of debunk the story that they have. Most of these high achievers believe that, well, I've got to keep doing what I've been doing or I'm going to lose what I have. So we first kind of debunk that and give them a different belief. And that belief is, if I give to myself a little bit, I have more energy, my battery charges. Therefore, I have more output and can gain more. And then what that process looks like is, let's just talk about like what fills you up. When we take a minute away from work, what fills you up, because those are going to be your energy enhancers, which, I refer to as your values. That's step one, knowing what fills you up so that you can proactively get them in your day. And then as soon as you start seeing that reward of, wow, I got my values in and my output was higher, people are motivated to keep going.
So what is the timeline? I mean, I know it's very catered to each and every one, but I mean, is there, if let's say they do more for a certain period of time, are they going to reach that level that you're talking about quicker than later? So how based on your past history, what is the typical timeline that you have seen being repeated over and over again?
Honestly, you will see a difference instantly if you stay consistent with it. And for example, I have a morning mindset journal. It's a 5 to 10 minute practice that people do in the morning that sets them up for a proactive day. But what it also is doing is giving them 5 to 10 minutes to listen to themselves. Even that one little tweak, people will instantly say like, oh, I felt so much more like calm and peace in my day. I felt so much more, energetic and proactive. So they feel that productivity increase instantly. But really, I think your big benchmarks are, 3 months down the road, you have this larger bandwidth and almost like a clear mind to start executing and firing differently.
So, is there like some who have gone through like traumatic failure in their life? Is it also something that can be rewired at this point because they have some limiting belief or they have this kind of imposter syndrome that they have been carrying for so long? Is there a way to be able to change this mindset?
Almost everybody out there has some kind of limiting belief, past experience, trauma, even if they don't realize what it is, they're carrying that. We all have past years that are now in our subconscious.
Correct.
So we can absolutely rewire those. And what it takes is choosing your new belief for your story and consistently every single day placing that into your mind and backing it up with action. And I say, basically it's affirmation and intention around your new story.
That is so good. That is so true. Now, when it comes to different exercises that you recommend the most that our listeners can actually take advantage of, I'm not trying for them to circumvent your services here, but I'm just trying to kind of give them some tools that they could put into practice as soon as they finish listening to this podcast. So, is there like a specific 5-step process or 10-step process that they could actually go and apply without really having to wonder if they're missing a few pieces of the puzzle?
There are several, but I'm going to give you one of my favorite ones that people can implement right away to understand what kind of power they have to do something differently. And it's easy to remember because I call it CPR. It's like self-administered CPR. Okay. And all that is we're catching what's coming up. So that's self-awareness. We're pausing so that we actually get to think about what's happening. And then we're responding in a way that makes sense for us. That process right there is going to start to rewire things for you because naturally we're very reactive people.
Correct.
We aren't self-aware. The subconscious beliefs come, we simply react, and then we generally have regret or remorse later if we weren't happy with that reaction. So implementing this CPR, catch it. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking this. Pause. What do I want to do with it? It really starts to give people this vision of like, wow, I have the power to change something. I have the power to make different decisions, to respond. And that's a great first place to start.
But then if you read about that there's around 60 to 70,000 thoughts going through our mind every single approximately 1 per second, how are we going to capture all the negative, all the positive? How are we going to create that balance and be able to extract what we want to focus the most on? Because obviously we cannot really analyze every of our thought. That's mind-boggling and literally and figuratively speaking. But is there a way to be able to kind of like target a specific few of them and say, yes, you know what, I'll focus more on that versus all the other that comes its way?
Great question. And I highly recommend you zone in on one area first. Perfect example. When I started my transition, the first thing I wanted to do was have more peace in my life. I tended to be a person that reacted. When things didn't go my way, I became frustrated. If I couldn't control things, it was annoying. And I said, I just want to be a more peaceful person. So having that thought every single day and going, I'm going to choose peace. What happened with that was my mind would catch the thoughts that were not in alignment with peace. So, somebody cut me off on the road and all of a sudden, my heart races and I get angry. my brain is going, wait, we decided we were focusing on peace. And so it's easy to capture that thought because I had committed to working on that one particular area.
But okay, so like if you do focus on a specific area, and those who actually are too much into wanting to control their situation, is it to kind of let them go and realize that what's out of my control, I'm just going to let it go? Because if they're too focused on controlling every aspect of their lives, again, easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't think it's about necessarily control here. It's control over the way you respond. That's the one thing we really have control over. I can't control the person cutting me off in traffic,
No.
but I can certainly control the way I respond to it. And that's what we have to pay attention to. It's almost like letting go of our uncontrollables and focusing on the things that we can control. And I can absolutely decide that it doesn't matter, and I'm going to let that go.
Yes, and this is what when we see road rage and those who are losing their life because some people are really pretty nuts on the road.
Right.
When it comes to someone's career, Angie, what would be the best recommendation that you would give someone who's starting up when it comes to or starting their own businesses and all? It's pretty scary for those who have not experienced, like either have like 20 or 30 years experience in it, but someone who just is an entrepreneur, someone who really wants to be able to create their own legacy, whatever it is there like a specific thing that you have to give them, like a set of tools before really deciding if entrepreneurship is the best option for them?
Yeah, I mean, deciding whether entrepreneurship is the best option for them, I like to refer people back to their values, like what's important to you. And to give you an example, if someone sits down with me and I talk to them about their values and they love stability and security, and they love time freedom, and all these things that are really kind of generally in conflict with entrepreneurship,
I agree.
I'm like, maybe we should consider something else, right?
That is so true, because everything that you said is completely the polar opposite of what entrepreneur goes through.
Right. And some people really just think like, oh, I have this great idea and this great business idea and I want to implement it, but they have zero desire to be, tied to a business all the time, to have constant challenges, and they don't realize what comes along with that entrepreneurship.
Do people lack the sacrifice ability, because knowing that they're going to have to put aside their family time, put aside their friend time, etc., that deters them from actually getting into becoming an entrepreneur? I mean, and this is what the $1 million question: are entrepreneurs born or made?
Mm. I don't have an answer to that question. I've seen it on both sides, because I have seen people come into me that I would have never thought were an entrepreneur. They're not showing up that way from a personality perspective and what they've done in the past, but they become so passionate about what they want to do that they will start to be able to kind of reconcile and sacrifice. Like, I know I'm going to have to give this up. I know I'm going to have to give this up, and I'm okay with that. But a lot of that is realizing it up front and having those expectations. It's much different than when you're blindsided by it and you jump into a business and you're like, I didn't know it was going to take up so much time. I didn't know I was going to have to sacrifice these things,
So in any of your consultation, have people realized that maybe entrepreneurship was not really for them based on their values, or they were so adamant to be able to find that freedom, not to be not to be slave of another, I would say, organization, and having to live inside that matrix? Have you tried to kind of like giving them the tools to be able to realize with themselves that entrepreneurship may not be the best solution?
I've seen it several times, and there's a few ways we work with it. Sometimes I've literally seen people go back to other companies where they're like, I don't want to have a lifestyle like this. And they almost realize maybe the grass wasn't greener. So they go back to a company, which is fine if that aligns with their values. But we also have the ability to go, okay, well, what are you missing out on? And how can we fix that? So I had a CEO, for example, and he's like, I don't know. I didn't realize I was going to have to give up so much freedom, so much family time, constantly be on. Well, we brought in, two executives that really took over the brunt of what was always tying him down. So he still got to be the entrepreneur, still got to have a company that he loves, but really was able to delegate these things that chained him to his company. So sure, there's going to be a higher output as far as expense is concerned, but it's worth the cost of him getting those values in.
So it was more a cause of the organizational structure that caused him to feel imprisoned of his own business versus him trying to either love what he does or start regretting his decisions. Because, I mean, have you seen an entrepreneur that regretted to be in entrepreneurship? I mean, is there only a one-way street or is it both ways? That's the question. Because, I mean, do entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship and regress it and then go work for someone, or people who work for someone and then end up wanting to go into entrepreneurship?
Well, I think it's a two-way street. I think it happens both ways. And luckily, for the entrepreneurs that start to regret and have that remorse, they have people like you and I to talk to.
Yes.
Right. And they start to see other possibilities, that it's not just this, oh, I have to do it this way, or I've got to go back, where we can go, okay, well, what would make this entrepreneurship the vision that you initially had? Because the truth of the matter is you can be an entrepreneur and not be chained to your company. It is all organizational structure and who you have in place to do things. But a lot of entrepreneurs think that they need to be the one who has their hand in everything.
Yes.
And they're the ones who tie themselves to it, right?
But we're being taught in school, Angie, that the entrepreneur have to wear every hat.
Uh-huh.
Marketing, the accountant, the HR, this and that. So changing people's perspective about what the role of an entrepreneur is, it's really a visionary. It's not necessarily doing what we've been told to do just because of the educational system found this is exactly what your role is. But because it has changed since the beginning of times when they taught us, okay, an entrepreneur should be doing this and this and this. But then you let the business run you and you don't run the business. So where is the distinction between both? What should an entrepreneur do? Should they just delegate and focus on the vision, or to avoid any monkey business in the organization, be able to have their nose in basically every single department?
It's a process, and you have to set up those expectations in the beginning. The problem is that I believe entrepreneurship looks messy in the beginning, and you are wearing all those hats unless you're fully funded and you have the ability to bring these people on. But I also believe there's a lot of value in that entrepreneur playing a bit of every role, because they really get to know the inside and outs of their business. But where they go wrong is they never step away from it. And they get that thought, like you said, that, well, because I've done everything, this is the way I need to keep doing it. When really what we need to do is go, listen, you're going to do everything for the first year.
Yes.
And at a year's mark, or at this revenues mark, we're going to take those training wheels off, and you're going to become the real CEO and the visionary. And this is what it looks like. So if they go into it with those expectations, then they kind of know, like, okay, this is when I'm bringing this marketing person on. This is when I'm bringing in the COO. So they kind of believe that this is the way that it unfolds, instead of thinking that they're the crutch that has to, hold the whole company up.
But then again, every entrepreneur will tell you the exact same thing, Angie, is that no one can do it as best as me, or no one has the heart for the company as I do. So,
sure.
Come to think of it, everyone else is just an employee. You own it. No one's going to put their heart and soul into growing the business, because it's not theirs. It's someone else's. So how can you, and this is what we have seen in the Great Resignation during the pandemic, where a lot of people like to leave because they never really felt a part of the organization. They're just an employee number at best. So how can you change your staff mindset to make them feel that they're actually a part of the growth? Give them share options, give them what would you recommend to be able to have everyone to see the same as you, the entrepreneur?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say that's a big excuse that people use often, but it is exactly that. It's an excuse. It's an easy way to not delegate and give people responsibility. But the truth is, it's the delegation and responsibility that make the employees feel like they have skin in the game and they're part of the company. It's the management that never allows them to do anything that makes them feel like they're just another cog in the wheel and, not a part of this company. So there really has to be a shift in owners giving employees not ownership in the way of financial, but ownership of their roles
Yes.
and passion behind it, so that they can really feel like they're a part of it. And I'm all for, yes, having equity, options, if it's a company that does that, or even a 401k, something where it says to the employees like, hey, the more I do well for this company, the more it benefits the company and myself.
That's correct. Exactly. But this is the thing. I mean, do you feel that it's better to do this in the beginning when you hire someone to explain to them everything their participation in the growth of the company will render positive result for them as well, versus because I don't see many organizational culture that has that benefit, that people can actually say, I'm a part of the success, I'm not a part of the liability. So
Right.
but then managers have not been raised this way, especially those who have been
Mm-mm.
in the company for 30, 40 years. They're old school. They think that, oh, you know what, least we give them and least errors or mistake can be made.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
where do we go to, the source or to the hierarchy? I mean, who do we tackle first?
Yeah. It has to start with management. It really has to start with them